What's going on, Guardians? It's Tizzle here, and in this video I will be detailing the 10 best exotic special weapons in Destiny 2. Full disclosure, I'm ranking these weapons a few weeks before Christmas, so any sandbox changes that happen between now and then, I'm not responsible for. For instance, in Act 3 we are getting a new special shotgun, but this video is being made before that, therefore it won't be on the list. Maybe it will be an absolute monster and I should have waited, but that's just the way things go. If that's the case, then like Buried Bloodline missing the cut last year, I will get it on the 2026 version of this list. Destiny is an evolving game, and as such, this list is quite different from last year's. I remember last year when I was making this video, I thought, wow, there aren't that many great exotic specials. I honestly struggled to come up with 10 deserving of being on the list, as some aren't overly strong, but boy has that changed since the final shape launched. Between new weapons being introduced and older weapons being nerfed, we have a much different looking list this year, and specials are eating good these days. Only 3 weapons from last year made the list this year, and the number 1 weapon in Witherhoard isn't even on this list. I still love Witherhoard, but the introduction of the area denial frame GLs has completely removed the need for Witherhoard. Sadly, it's been power crept out of relevance, and other weapons have been power crept into relevance, and one such weapon is actually number 11 on this list. I know this is a top 10, but hey, it's my video and I have to give a shout out to Xenology. It is just a very hard weapon to place because this season it's easily a top 3 special weapon. You have concussive reload allowing it to weaken enemies, and then you also have arc compounding where arc sources deal more damage to targets that are blinded. These two factors account for 32.25% more damage, making it an absolute powerhouse this season. But in last year's ranking, I ranked Polaris Lance a little too high thanks to artifact perks. I want this list to showcase the best weapons at a base form without any artifact help. And the weapons need to be build agnostic, meaning they perform well no matter what build you plug them into. That being said, Xenology got a buff to how often it can make loyal moths, and these moths can blind enemies. And I've said it before that blind is one of the most powerful verbs in all of Destiny, but it's typically pretty hard to proc, and Xenology is one of the easiest things that you can use to make it proc, so it has great utility. It also never needs to be reloaded, which is amazing. It's also really strong in double special builds thanks to its deep ammo reserves, and because of said deep reserves and no reloading, it is also part of a very powerful damage rotation. Its only real downside is it can be a bit clunky to shoot, and it's inconsistent because it ramps up its rate of fire as you become enraged. But these are tiny knocks on it. But yeah, I wanted to give it a shout out because it's an excellent weapon, but it's a little hard to grade right now. I would like to see how it performs when GLs and Arc Surge aren't so heavily featured, but I still really like it, and it definitely deserves a place on the list. So next up at number 10 we have Bastion. Bastion got a massive damage buff, basically giving it Trench Barrel. You do a melee and then it deals 45% more damage and has a quicker charge time. That's a substantial buff, but it also got 1-2 punch. So when paired with melee based builds, it goes insanely hard. It also has intrinsic unstoppable, making it nice for loadout flexibility and dealing with unstops. Before the buffs, it was just a niche pick for speedrunners for taking out blights, but now it's a legitimate damage option in the right damage scenario, and it's just great to use in general play. It's a really fun weapon. At number 9 we have Euphony. This is a raid exotic from Salvation's Edge. We get it after defeating the Witness, so if any weapon should be powerful, it's this one. And trust me, it is. It just hasn't gotten much fanfare because after a year of Strand Surge after Lightfall, we haven't really seen anything benefiting Strand builds since the final shape. Nor have we seen any artifact mods helping out linear fusion rifles. But this weapon puts out. As you deal damage with Threadlings, it ramps up the damage of this weapon. At its max 25 stacks, it can hit for 50% more damage, making it hit like a heavy linear fusion rifle with a damage buff. This is obviously very strong, and when Strand does come back around, watch out for this thing to be putting in some serious work. It goes hard. Speaking of final shape exotics, at number 8 we have a very cool exotic in Ergo Sum. There are 8 variants of this weapon, and some are far better than others. The standouts are Wolfpack rounds to basically buff all swords the same way that Galahorn buffs rockets. We used this strat on day 1 of Salvation's Edge to take down the Herald of Finality, and it worked great. The Perfect Fifth is a great damage option if you are Transcendent, and the Arc Conductor one is excellent for getting arc damage resistance and passive ad clear like with Risk Runner. And the other options it has are fun and unique as well, and it can even generate its own ammo from grenades when you're Transcendent. It is just a super neat and extremely unique weapon that is well deserving of making this list just based on all the ways that you can build craft around it. It's truly one of the coolest weapons in Destiny. At number 7, we have the OG Champion Stunner in Eriana's Vow. This came out in Shadowkeep and was the only weapon with intrinsic champion stunning capability. Back then, it was probably the most used special in the game for that fact alone, and the Catalyst gave it a deeper magazine and auto-loading holster. But as weapons like Arbalest and Wishender came along, Eriana's took a backseat. And then, as subclasses evolved and subclass got intrinsic stunning capability, it fell further into relevancy. But it came back with a vengeance with a patch note that allowed it to one-shot champion shields even in GMs. It can now one-shot a barrier shield even without Solar Surge so long as you shoot the barrier shield with the first glance active. And when that shield pops, it causes an ignition. Wishender and Arbalest both have a charge time where Eriana's Vow can shoot instantly, returning it to the top of the anti-barrier throne where it belongs. And then the ignition utility is just super nice for ad clear. And it also has some nice utility with Lucky Pants on Hunter to allow it to hit super hard. Just an all-around really good and strong weapon. At number 6, we have a Destiny classic in Izanagi's Burden. Coming out in Year 2, Season of the Forge, aka Black Armory, this has been a fan favorite ever since. It used to be a staple in DPS rotations, but it has since fallen out of favor in the latest damage metas. That being said, it is still really good when you need to deal a big chunk of damage in a hurry, and I am always partial to a weapon that deals a ton of damage in one shot, and this serves that purpose well, and it can do it from a safe distance. You just have to make sure you hit the crit. But yeah, this is still a solid weapon in most pieces of content. At number 5, we have another sniper rifle in Cloudstrike. This weapon is a big part of meta damage rotations. It's a rapid fire sniper which has the highest DPS of all the sniper archetypes, and this one does even more damage thanks to the lightning strikes that it rains down. It also has good ad clear utility, as if you get a headshot kill, it will cause a lightning strike which takes out the surrounding ads. It's also a monster in Crucible for this reason, even though it has been nerfed there. It pairs perfectly with autoloading grenade launchers to deal huge damage. You can use it in a bait and switch rotation, or use it to proc Cascade Point. It also has very high reserves, giving it really good total damage. I love this weapon, and it is performing very well these days. At number 4, we have another weapon that I absolutely adore in Ager's Scepter. It has amazing ad clear as it hits really hard and reloads itself with kills, and it also freezes all surrounding enemies when you get a kill with it. This gives it even better ad clear and makes it pair very nicely with stasis builds. But we aren't done. It also has an alternative fire mode where it turns into a super laser that can slow and freeze enemies. This makes it effective against overload champions as well as unstoppables. And in this mode, it also does some really good damage to bosses. Granted, it does use your super energy, but in the right build, this doesn't really matter. It just has so much utility and is good at so many things that it's well deserving of a high placement on this list. At number 3, we have a new addition to the game that veteran Destiny players are very familiar with in Icebreaker. This was a classic in D1, and the D2 variant really lives up to the legacy the first one set. This is the exotic from the newest dungeon, Vesper's Host, and it's very good. A lot of people seem to think it isn't great because it has low DPS, but that is not what this weapon is about. This is an ad clear sniper. I know that's an oxymoron, but it's true. It also has subclass synergy that is true to its name. Its whole thing is about breaking ice. If you do this, you will trigger ignitions, and this will take out lots of ads. And if you use it in this way, you will have infinite ammo just like the D1 version. As you get kills with weapons or abilities, it will give this gun ammo, and you never have to reload it. So, are you going to use this on a boss phase like Oryx? Absolutely not. Use Cloudstrike or Whisper. But if you want a sniper that thrives in ad-dense environments like Grandmaster Nightfalls, this is your weapon. If you build around this weapon, it will reward you with infinite ammo and infinite total damage. It fires very slowly, which takes some getting used to, but because it shoots slowly, it also hits like a truck, so it's very good to chunk down champions. And if you get a crit kill with it, that too will trigger an ignition, and crit kills are super easy to get with it because it hits so hard. This is just a wonderful exotic, and Bungie did a great job in reprising it for Destiny 2. So before we get to the top 2, I want to give a shout out to some honorable mentions. I obviously talked about Witherhoard already, and it is still very strong, but it's not really worth taking an exotic slot when you can just run VS Velocity Baton or Lost Signal instead. Conditional Finality is a super cool and very fun weapon with good utility as it can freeze and ignite, but it just missed the cut for the list this year. Divinity still has a place in the game, allowing you to hit easy crits on hard to hit bosses, but with so many ways to apply Weaken now, its role has been greatly diminished. Arbalist was once the go-to against barriers and shielded enemies, but has since been power crept out of relevance by the prevalence of Radiant, along with Eriana's Vow doing what it does but better, and Wishender doing what it does but primary. Still Hunt was a monster when Final Shape released, being the absolute meta when paired with Celestial Nighthawk, but this was nerfed pretty hard, and because it was so specific, it now doesn't really bring anything special to the table. Cloudstrike can basically do what it does but easier. In fact, a few weeks after Salvation's Edge launched, I was using Cloudstrike with a Reconstruction Crux Termination over Still Hunt when I was on a Titan or Warlock, and I was usually outdamaging my teammates using Still Hunt. So it's definitely a cool weapon, but not strong enough for the list. Telesto got buffed and is feeling really good now, but it isn't stronger than the others. Merciless is a DPS monster that still has utility in certain scenarios, but it's too niche to be worth using in general play. Forerunner is pretty nice, but if you're going to use a special sidearm, just use Buried Bloodline. Duality has had a big glow up, but special shotguns aren't that great to use in endgame. Dead Messenger still has awesome ad clear, and finally we have one of my favorites in Vexcalibur, an extremely powerful weapon, but glaives are quite niche. But when they get reworked in episode 3 and they're featured on the artifact again, watch out for this one. So now let's get back to the list. At number 2, we have a weapon that I regrettably left off last year's list because I hadn't played with it enough at the time when I made the video. But shortly after that, I made sure to give it a try and I instantly saw the power of this thing. I'm talking about Buried Bloodline. Rocket ammo sidearms have been amazing since being introduced into the game, and this one is extra special. It grants you Devour when you get multi-kills with it or a kill on a higher tier enemy, and I don't think I have to tell you how strong of an effect Devour is. But on top of this, when Devour is active, shots with it will weaken targets, so it can help give you health back and also weaken targets for you. It also has amazing ammo economy. At base, it holds a whopping 52 shots. Other rocket sidearms got a reserve nerf to around 39 shots, but this one kept the high ammo count. So it has really good total damage, and you can pretty much use it like a primary. And it is awesome in this role. It hits really hard on red and orange bars, allowing you to dispatch them quickly, which grants you Devour, and then you can weaken them all. It's just a wonderful ad clear weapon and truly one of the best in the entire game. And it can buff your builds greatly, as it is an easy and reliable way to get Devour. This thing is a monster. And finally, at number 1, we have Choir of One. I got it the day it came out and made a video on it, and I didn't want to sound clickbaity, but it felt powerful as fuck. Like, it was one-shotting champions and GMs solo. Turned out, it was overtuned on the hipfire shot, and Bungie brought it back in line. It also had more ammo reserves than intended, which was like, yeah, obviously. I took it into a solo GM with double special, and I didn't struggle for ammo at all. It was incredibly good. But that being said, I've been using it since the nerfs and it's still wonderful. Garden of Salvation got reprised and it's absolutely awesome in there. It can clear out enemies with ease and you never struggle for ammo in any of the encounters, even running double special. It's a perfect weapon for that raid. I run it with destabilizing rounds as it works great on that weapon, but it is craftable and you can use other options. At range, when ADS, it shoots like a scout rifle and is very ammo efficient, so it has really nice ad clear. But then if you need it to deal big damage, you can hipfire it and chunk champions. It's absolutely excellent on things like Briggs in the hipfire mode. Any weapon that has dual utility is very strong in Destiny, as you may have seen in my top 10 primaries video. And if you haven't, then watch that one next. But yeah, given that it can serve 2 functions, it makes it a very versatile weapon and good in many situations. I think it will be a staple in day 1 raids for solid ad clear, and then you can pair it with a heavy GL or sword or something for damage. That is how I use it in Garden of Salvation, and it's perfect. So let's recap. At number 11, we had Xdearest because it's just really hard to rank thanks to how strong it is this episode. At number 10, we had Bastion, Euphony at number 9, Ergo Sum at number 8, Eriana's Vow at number 7, Izanagi's Burden at number 6, Cloudstrike at number 5, Ager's Scepter at number 4, Icebreaker at number 3, Buried Bloodline at number 2, and Choir of One alone at number 1. And that is going to do it for the video. Let me know what you think of the list down below. It was hard to narrow it down to just 10 weapons, but I think I did a good job. If you liked this video, then let me know by hitting the like button, and if you want to see more awesome Destiny 2 content, be sure to subscribe. I've also recently started streaming, so you can check me out on Twitch at itstizzle7, and I also have a community Discord. Those are both linked in the description below. And if you haven't already, check out my video on the top 10 primary exotics in Destiny 2. I'm sure you'll like it. And if you're still here, then thanks so much for watching to the end. I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.